Welcome back.
What's up, shitbags?
Episode 28.
Oh, welcome back. It's great. So many episodes, twice a month. It's been fantastic. The year's flying by though. It's already
almost
September.
done.
Yeah. We only got, I think, like 6 guests left for this year.
Yeah.
So
Something like that.
we're starting to again, I know we talked about it last episode, but we're starting to finalize our guest list for next year. So you got anybody that you want to hear from, or maybe you want to come on, reach out on a message, Facebook message, text us if you got our numbers, whatever it may be. While you're doing that, you can also send in questions.
Just having to talk about that. Yeah, send your questions in.
Like we said, we know it's hard, but it's not that hard. We got like Facebook, you can comment on a post. It's so easy. We see you guys are out there. You're sharing it, you're liking it, you're talking to us when we see you in person. We can't keep coming up with all the questions. Our brains are fried.
No kidding.
We're just stupid firemen. But anyway, well, huge thank you to all of our sponsors again. We talked about last time. We got a new one with toxic suppression. So huge thanks to those guys. Working on the design for the new merch that should be coming out. I know I said last episode, so probably by last episode, if not this episode, that should be out there. We want to get it out for this nice job shirt fall weather. Get some sweatshirts is the plan, and hopefully you can keep giving back and doing some cool shit with that. So couldn't do it without them. Couldn't do it without Taylor's Tins. Couldn't do it without Jobtown. He's the one that's working on the design and the merch, and just a great guy. I mean, seriously, like we're using them for fools. Show them some love. If you got a logo you want made, if you already got a logo, you just want merch from him, you just want to make stuff up. Like he does everything, and he's such a good dude. And of course, crew first, Jeremy Sanders, man, that guy, he'll be back on next year. We're having him on every year. I mean, that guy started it all.
Always learn something from him. So.
Just show them all some love. They're all great people, and we wouldn't be here without them. So can't thank them enough. But all right, without further ado, let's not take any more time away from our next guest. We're so excited to have him on. We've gotten to know him very close through some trainings we've done and some close friends, and we always learn something from this guy, and can't wait. And so excited that he said he could come on and share some knowledge with you guys. So without further ado, let's bring in John. John, how's it going,
brother?
How's it going, guys? Yeah. Well, dude, no, that's totally true. Like what you guys are saying about your sponsors, like, show some firemen some love. Like there's a lot of our guys out there just like doing it, making tools, making shirts. Like,
oh yeah.
One of the guys I was working with this weekend, he was like, if you took $10 out of a paycheck every year, you'd have what, like 500 or $250 that you could put back in, and some dude might make a big difference. It's just, it's kind of cool to see guys buying into that and supporting other firemen now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great outlook on that. Yeah, it's for sure. There's so many dudes that are just working and doing their own things on the side. So that's awesome. But yeah, John, thanks for coming on. Why don't you go ahead and give a little introduction? Tell everybody about yourself.
I'm John Hattrup. I've been on the Wichita Fire Department for 13 years, almost 14. Been a lieutenant for the last 4. I currently ride Engine 10. It's housed with Rescue 2. So we're part of the Special Operations group here in Wichita. I guess, joined the hazmat team back in 2012, back when our rescues were separated. Then about 6-7 years ago, we kind of combined the teams, got rid of 2 separate teams and made them all together. Was a part of that as a fireman. I got promoted out and was lucky that I was only gone for about 6-7 months. So I got a nice little break from Engine 10 and 10 house for a very small time, but I got more sleep. Then the guy I replaced got promoted to captain, and I came back. And so I've spent probably about at least 10, maybe 11 years of my career at 10s, which has been awesome. Been a member of the local 135 since I joined, part of Kansas Task Force 1, so our regional and state deployment team. And then, just a little shout out to good old Jaden. Yeah, I am a smoke diver. I did Oklahoma, and I was in class 1 and was able to complete the course. So
awesome.
kind of me in a nutshell, I guess, with the fire service.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll give you a chance to talk about smoke divers later. Don't worry. We got some questions. So
how did I kind of assume those were coming?
They're pretty genuine. They are. But No, that's awesome. I mean, like we said, thank you for coming on. We're super excited to have you on here. So we'll jump right into it because we know you got to go for this. So our first question, like we said, we got 4 generic, and then we got some custom for you. Is where did you discover your passion for training?
I was just lucky enough that when I came on, our department was kind of going through a transition where there was kind of those who trained and those who didn't. And, there were some growing pains with that. And I just kind of always wanted to learn something new or get out and get hands on. And those guys kind of stuck around and hung around. And then I got introduced to the fire service classes outside of Wichita. We've always had hot here, as far back as I can remember. And so I was going to those. Well, then guys were like, hey, what about this? Have you looked about going to these classes? And that kind of lit it. And then honestly, when I got on the hazmat team and got my tech, my captain at the time told me, he's like, hey, there's all these free classes that the government will pay for, and the department may or may not give you time off, but you can go and take these free courses. And that really kind of got it going, because then you met guys, and he forgot to tell me that I was going to go to the thriving metropolis of like Socorro, New Mexico, and middle of nowhere places, which I quickly found out that's where all hazmat classes are in case something goes wrong. But went out there and I met some dudes and just kind of got in touch with them and would bounce ideas off. And then honestly, what really has kept it going was when I kind of made that decision to go to smoke divers, and I found some guys that are really plugged in a lot. And you don't have to, every day doesn't have to be an on day. Like, we're still human. You can have an off day, but those guys were like, hey, as long as you bounce back and keep moving forward, that's the main goal. So that's really kind of where it came from. It was just, I started taking classes. Somebody brought me up and opened that door and kind of pushed me through, and maybe the motivation wasn't the best to like, hey, yeah, I just want to get out of town and go hang out with a bunch of firemen, but it worked.
Yeah. We just talked about that with our last guest. I mean, the socials afterwards. Sometimes that's the most fun, where you learn some of the most. So that's we know how to drink. So that's what makes it fun. But yeah,
I mean, like when we were hanging out at Wichita Brewing Company, I mean, how late did we stay there after we paid our tab? Just 15 of us sitting there.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Yeah. No, it's always a blast. Like you said, it really takes one. I mean, I think for both Brennan and I, it was JD, which we've had JD on, obviously you're close to JD. Like, he brought me the last guest was Austin. And he was helping out in a Minnesota training. And that was, I believe, the first outside training that I went to, and JD took me to it. And you just meet people and you talk more and more and more. And then it's like, hey, I'm going to this next weekend. You want to come? And, it just, your eyes get wide open to everything there. Fools was a big part of it. Like, it's just, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, there's so much shit you can go do. And it's always a great time. Like,
well, it's all it takes really is, Zaya and I, we drove all the way from here to meet JD in Lexington a few years back for Andy Frederick's days. And that was a riot, but just took a like, hey, you want to go to this? Yeah. Okay. Let's buy tickets and go. And,
right?
kind of been the fun thing. And that, it's kind of why I always tell the guys when things come up, I'm like, hey, I'm looking at going this. Anybody want to go? I'm going either way. You're more than welcome to come along, and it cuts the fuel in half.
Yeah. Exactly. Just makes it better. Awesome. Next question that we have: what piece of advice were you given on day one that stuck with you? Could be day one, week one, month one. Something right at the start.
Back in the beginning, and I'm lucky that I still work every day with this guy. He actually rides Engine 4, and he's a hell of a dude. And when I came on at nines, he was kind of like the junior private, so he was right above me. He wasn't the senior man or an officer, but he just had a super awesome outlook on the fire department. Was very positive. He was never negative to me, and he told me one day, like, I had a rough first year. I had a lot of fuck ups, and I didn't do myself a lot of favors, but he never really lost faith in me, or at least I never felt he did. But he told me, he's like, man, just remember how you felt when you got this job. And he goes, like I kind of hit on earlier, not every day's got to be a home run. Some days you're going to go up there and you're going to strike out, and it's not going to be a good day. But as long as you're willing to get back in there and try again, and you remember that feeling you had when you came on, and don't lose that, you're going to be all right. And as you know, there's been dark days, there's been great days, and as much as those great days have been awesome, I kind of remember like how much I didn't know when I got on, and those days kind of keep me down here and keep me level. But then also on those bad days when it's just like I'm never going to forget what just happened for all the wrong reasons. It's also been like, but how awesome was that feeling of, when I got the call, when I got my badge, when I made that first call, like that first year when you're just everything's so new and awesome, and just it's almost like it's a drug.
Yeah.
And just kind of, chasing that high and remembering it. And that was solid advice that I've really looked back on for like the last 14 years. And I've tried to pass on to the younger guys I've worked with is, just remember what it was like when you were first here. We never promised you that the fire department was going to be perfect. We never promised you that you were going to, always go to fires and do cool stuff and, all that bullshit that people sell you. But this is what it is. And if you can remember why you want to be here or how you felt, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Austin's episode, the guy we just recorded with, his episode is not out at the time that we record this, but we talked about all this same stuff. And like, I hope that just drills it home for people, because we talked about that, when you would start, you'd have guys that were, 20, 25 years on, and you'd get your first fire call, you'd be all excited, and they'd be like, just wait until you're my age. Like, you won't be excited to be going to those anymore. And you're like, no, that's not what I'm going to be. I'm going to remember day one. I want to remember day one and be happy and excited every day I walk in that door.
Oh, 100%. I've always been one of those, like, and I understand that statement. And I think there are guys that are at the end of their tenure. But I think deep down inside, when those tones drop and they hear house fire and it's first due, I mean, if that doesn't get you going, it may be time to go to HR and run those numbers and see if it's time to step away. But for like, I'm still at the point that, like, if a fire is just right outside of our district that we're not going to get to go to, I'm like mad at those guys. No, this fire needs to be 4 blocks closer. Like, I want to go to that. And, that's that. I love that feeling. And I think, there's also guys out there that, one of the captains we saw just retire that I worked under for several years. I don't think he ever lost it. Now, there's some rough feelings between him and other higher individuals, but he never lost being a fireman, which was awesome. Like, he still loved doing the job.
Absolutely. It's the best job in the world. That's been really talked about all the time. It's on right there. Best job I ever had on my helmet. Like, it's just the Fury quote, but I think ours is better.
Best job ever. There's only one job I've ever looked at and been like, man, that would be pretty cool. And like, we were lucky, McConnell's right down the road from me, so the Blue Angels were here when they were doing test flights. And I was like, all right, that might be a real close second.
That's a close one. That's a close.
I mean, like,
but it's right there.
Fighter jet be pretty cool.
And then you get called for a toe pain. You're like, okay, maybe it's number one.
Stuck on the medic. Fuck.
No, it's awesome. But yeah, like I said, I hope that just drives it home for people, especially people starting off. That's what this whole thing's about, is for advice for young guys. And I think I've seen, just personally, you've seen a lot of that change where it's kind of going back to that mentality that this is the best job ever. And like,
for sure.
It's not, not that I've been around for that long, but I remember being an intern and hearing stuff like that, or, starting off in the volley side. Like, it seems like it was just a little bit of the old guard, that maybe it was the complacency or whatever it may be. I can't speak for them. And then now it's kind of back into the, okay, no, we're here for a reason. This is a kick-ass job, and it's fun to be here. So.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I was lucky when I came up through here and getting on with Wichita, because that's all I ever wanted to be. But there was a lot of old heads, a lot of guys that I respected that either my parents knew or I knew through a family member that was on the job. And I still, to this day, have a lot of the like cards or letters. And I think every single dude who was on the job signed it or made some comment of like, you struck the lottery, best job ever, best job you'll ever have. And I do think that did fall away because I think firemen just kind of we lost it for a little bit. It almost just became another government job. Like we were just showing up and collecting a paycheck. But that it seems I would completely agree. You know, podcasts like your guys's and the other ones out there have really kind of changed that momentum back to like how awesome it is to do this job. I mean, you know, there's not that while there's a lot of us on the job, I think the ones of us that are like doing the job are really enjoying it and gaining momentum and gaining numbers.
Absolutely. And just kind of pieced in my head that time frame, it could have been EMS that caused the not liking the job so much.
We don't ride a box here.
That 20 years, that was when it was starting to become fire-based EMS, you know?
Yeah.
I can see you used to show up to work, you did nothing but run fires, and now you're going to pick up MEMA 12 times in 2 weeks. Like, I could see that could hurt people,
I could see, I mean, you know, I think every time you talk to the senior men and the guys getting ready to retire, they're like, oh, you don't want to remember the war years. I'm like, at some point, I'm going to have my own war years. I don't know if I'm in them right now or, you know, like, it's like year 29. I look back, I'm like, oh, damn, that was a really fun time for that spell. But
no, and we talked about it. I mean, EMS it's a necessary evil, and it's not all bad. And once you, I mean, I don't remember if, I mean, I know it's been talked about so many times, but once you realize that, like, most people aren't calling 911 because they just want to call 911. Yeah, there's some people like that, but most people are calling because they think it's their emergency.
100%.
And you may show up and be like, this is bullshit, but as soon as you realize it's their emergency, like, or even those abusing people, like the people that abuse the system, I can be stern when I want to, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. Like,
right. I mean,
you yelling at them is not going to make them not take the ambulance to the hospital because they made up their mind. They're shitbags. They want to do it. So if you just have a pleasant ride with them and just, you know, makes it all more enjoyable, and then you're not as all salty and upset when that shit comes in. Do you yell, God fucking damn it, when it's the same person? Like, yes, but
maybe. I might look and see when it pops up on CAD, I'm already like filling out half the paperwork. I have to my own family members. But then it's also you get there and, you know, we have one that, the individual just doesn't have anyone local. It's her and her mom, and her mom is unable to get her to the hospital when she has these episodes and whatnot. And we've got a great rapport with her mom that it almost like throws off the EMS crew of like how casual we are. But it's like when they ask, it's like, hey, here's your vitals, here's her name, here's everything you need. And yeah, we've been here, you know, I've been to that house more than, you know, I've been to like, you know, some of my own family members' houses this year alone. And it just, you know, you make the best of it. There's jobs too awesome to let yourself get frustrated and angry at people. I mean,
just have a positive attitude going. I mean, our shift is like, we're positive. When those shitty calls come in, you're like, oh, we're going to this fucking shitbag's house again. Cool. Just having a positive attitude and, you know, being positive on scene, I think goes a long way. You're so negative.
Brennan made his gamer tag one of our regulars.
That is awesome.
But it's just shit like that. I mean, when like we do it now too, but when I was on even that shift, and I even still get, I'm still in the group chats, which makes my heart full. But you'll get like, I'll see the text come across because obviously I don't get the calls anymore, but like someone would be working overtime or on a different shift, and then they'll see that address come across, and then you get a text to the group chat, oh, say hi to so and so. Like, it's just, you do shit like that. It makes it bearable and fun. You know, it's just the best way to handle it.
It's so easy to turn those situations around with just a little bit of humor, or just like, you know, you guys were saying, a positive attitude. And you can make, you know, there's been times that, you know, we go out 4, 5, 6 times after midnight, and by the end of it, it's like, might as well just make a pot of coffee and start laughing. That's the only way we're gonna get through this.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. Great. I mean, that was a great deep dive into those questions. That's why we love it so much. Next generic question we got is, what conference and or training do you think every new firefighter should attend?
Ooh. I would say they need to find something kind of that mid level, not an FDIC or any of the like major ones. And I have nothing against those. I've been to a couple of them. Now, I've never been to FDIC, but I've been to some where you can kind of get lost in the wash.
Yeah.
You don't, you'll meet a couple guys here and there, and you may make a connection here or there. But if you can find like a good regional one that has, 300 guys, like you got a pretty good chance of meeting a lot of solid guys there. And if you go regionally, you kind of expand your circle a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's why I also say kind of stay away from like the immediate local ones, because I'm sure you guys have heard that you go 50 miles and the next that department considers you an expert, even though like you guys said you might be a shitbag. But if you kind of find that one by going those regionals, you kind of find the diamonds in the roughs, or the up and comers, the guys that aren't maybe teaching nationally but really have a good message. And then those guys still seem to be real approachable, and like if you shoot them a message on Facebook or Instagram or shoot them a text, they still seem to be reachable. And no fault to the guys who are the major role players, but sometimes you just get too busy, and it is what it is. I guess it's the cost of popularity. But by going to those smaller ones, you can kind of establish those friendships and things like that, and it's a lot easier to reach out. And then with them being hopefully regional, if you need to, you can go to them, they can come to you type thing. I would always say, like for us around here, guys coming in and going to Wichita Hot, like probably not, it's a good benefit for some of our members, but they're not going to learn anything we're not really showing them. Yeah, we bring in out of state individuals, but if they were to go to, and Sawdust might be a little far, but there's plenty down in like Texas and Oklahoma, things like that. I think those are really good conferences that you can get in. And when you get there, there's always guys advertising for the next one. Like I was just at Forge and Fire Alliance in Columbus, Ohio. And they were already talking about like prioritize the search in next year in September, and Great Lakes, Fools. And there was like 4 or 5 conferences they're already in the works with, and they're a year out. And I was, it was really fun to see a couple 1 or 2 year guys talking about, I want to go to that and I want to go to that. Are those like this? And it was like, you're on the right track, man. Like those ones, and go to the ones that are hands-on.
Absolutely.
Lectures are good and I enjoy them, but I think like what Todd just did up in Ohio was super cool. Day and a half of lecture. We did a ruck in the middle, and then we did a whole day of hands-on, and it was kind of that real nice spread where you got a lot that you can take home and write down and maybe go over and maybe change some things you do. And then we all kind of sweat together, which kind of brought everybody together. It's always a great idea. And then we got hands-on the next day, and we're doing forcible entry and doing search and victim removal and stuff like that. So we really brought it home with some fireman skills.
Yeah. We went to MAPC for our first time this year, and we met some great people there. And that was, it was fun because we had been, just the way that like availability and everything worked, a lot of conferences Brent and I had been to. And so MAPC was kind of the big hands-on that we'd been to. I'm trying to think of any other ones that we were really doing too much hands-on. And MAPC was so much fun. I mean, like you said, it was exactly kind of that spread up where it was lectures the first half, and then you dove into the hands-on. And we did the 24-hour course, so we actually missed the second day of lecture doing that. But it was, oh my God, that was such a great course. But yeah, it's there's something about it. I mean, those guys, I'm friends with, I think 90% of our class from that 24-hour course on Facebook now, and keep in touch. Like, there's something about, especially doing something that long, like, you come together, and that course is designed to just be a mental challenge and to really be a deep dive into like yourself. So obviously you're learning about all these other people's deep secrets and deep dives.
There's no hiding who you are that late.
No,
not at all. And it's like,
true self
people
comes
that
out.
You would never run into, never think of, having a drink, even if you saw them at a conference, and now you throw 20 of us all together into a space for 24 hours. It's like, I'm going to walk out knowing everything about you. Like,
right. Yeah. I'm kind of glad, like, one, you're kind of seeing a lot of those smaller conferences. Like, I can only imagine if we hopped on Google right now and said like fire conferences, United States, October, we probably run out of time before we've read them all. But then to like see those courses where we're kind of getting back to that, like, suffering together. And now you don't have to do that with just your guys. You can go do that. And then with other people, like you said, 20 dudes you didn't know, but now you got 20 people you can reach out to. You know, the next time you want to, hey, we experienced this on this call. Has anybody ever seen this before? Now you're bringing together 20 different departments, which is super cool because, you know, there's a pretty good chance somebody had seen that or is going to know somebody else that's going to be able to get you that answer.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's great. Our last generic question we got for you comes with no explanation. It's become one of our favorite questions. You take it however you want. First thing that comes into your mind is your answer. And it is simply, why are we here?
Why are we here?
This creates rabbit holes. I like it.
I do like this rabbit hole. You know, I could go with we're here for them. We are. But who's them would be my thing. You know, we're here to serve the public. That's why we're here. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you look all the way back. Yeah, fire departments, were started to kind of protect insurance and investments and things like that. But then I think the need was seen that this is a public service that people are entitled to. You know, if we're gonna say we're gonna protect people, much like, you know, they're entitled to the protection from the police. Well, you can't always arrest the problem. Sometimes the problem is a medical, a car wreck, a fire, and that's what we're here for. We're here to serve and to help the public. That's kind of, you know, going back to always having that positive attitude, and don't let the naysayers and the frustration get to you. Like, remember why we're here. Remember that feeling that you started with. Like, why'd you sign up? Why did you become a fireman? Nobody does this job to get rich. Because you're going to find out within the academy or so you backed the wrong horse and need to go do something else. But, you know, while we might not be making as much as people who are working in offices, and not to diminish what they do, I think we can be true difference makers in our community. Whether you work in the community you live or close to it or not, you know, that community where your house is now your community. And we have a real great opportunity and chance by serving them to make a difference, to be that individual who answered the call and showed up when they were having a terrible day. Like you said, you know, it's their emergency. They're not calling 911 because they want to. Well, at least most aren't.
Yeah.
Those who are calling 911 with a genuine fear or emergency, like, you're there to serve them, and that service is really kind of giving them hope and being the answer in their, you know, what could be, you know, their darkest or, you know, a not great moment of their life.
Yeah.
I think we're here to provide them comfort,
right,
and someone to lean on to get through that bad day.
Right, 100%. I mean, you think about all the things we're now asked to do as a fire service. I think that's kind of what's changed, and I think might have actually, you know, going back to the whole EMS coming in, that kind of changed the perception on being a fireman. You know, we're that answer, and, you know, we're that comfort. We're there to just make things better. You know, I think what's the, you know, always leave it better than we found it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people call, if they don't have the answer, they call us, and we have to figure out the answer.
Oh yeah.
So I've been on a lot of calls. Like, you got to be a plumber, construction,
brain surgeon, rocket science, plumber. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always fun when you're reading the CAD information. I'm like, what are we gonna? I don't know. I guess
we'll figure it out.
I hate this saying, we'll figure it out when we get there. But guys, right now I'm flying blind. We'll see what the situation is when we get a better look.
Yeah, so that's the thing. We'll figure it out.
We had a call last week. This lady just called because she was hungry, and she's like, all right, we got there. And I was like, here, you got anything in your fridge? Here, you got this. I put it in the microwave and made her some supper. I was like, shit, I'm a cook.
Yeah,
that made her day. And, you know, she had no one else.
Awesome.
And so I called 911 to get some food, and I was like, well, damn, we're gonna make a 3-star meal for you today.
3-star.
Make that
He said,
whole paper
we're not-
dirty and
we're
leave.
just keeping it low, keeping the standards low.
Yep.
Enough to get by, but not that she wants more. That's
Right.
like,
You don't
I
want
like
her calling back, being like, "Hey, whatever you made
send
last
that card?
time."
Yeah.
No.
And I think
One-time service.
there's always that the time and the place. I mean, to be human and realize that we've had situations like that where we show up and it's they having a emergency? Not really by definition, but they're out of options. But then there's also I think what wears guys down is you show up and there's an individual that we've run who like didn't want to turn the lights off in his room, so he called 911.
Yeah.
And then he wanted us to get his TV remote, and it's like, hey man, with service, you still gotta draw the line. It's almost kind of like the cat you feed never leaves.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we got that guy squared away and kind of said, hey, this is your freebie. You do this again, we're gonna have to address this situation. And this isn't an emergency. And we explained to him like, right now you just took one of the busier apparatus in the city out of service because you didn't want to turn off your light and get your remote. We're cool right now, but if we had missed a house fire or a code blue or a car wreck with a pin, it'd be a much different story on my face.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, circling back to what we talked about, we were just talking about yesterday. I'm gonna shout out my truck driver, Rick Garrettson. Like he's saying he's a seasoned guy, been on for a long time, and he's like, we're here to take calls. And we were talking about because we've been really busy because our hazmat team just got brand new trailer, brand new truck. I laughed because it was coming in right when I started, and I was like, they actually make hazmat look cool. Like it is. It's a triple axle trailer. It's got it's fantastic. But we're transferring everything over from the old trailer to that trailer, and he's like, just like today, we're here to take calls. He's like, yeah, we got that trailer to do, but he's like, guess what? We run calls all day. That trailer's going to be there tomorrow to do.
Yeah,
that trailer's going to be there the next day. It doesn't matter what we have planned, what little things that we have to do. We're here to take calls, and that's always going to be priority. Like everything else will be there for us to do when we get back. And
right.
Like, it's right on the head. Like
100%.
Awesome. Well, that concludes all of our generic questions. So that's great.
All right. Now the good ones, right?
Now the good ones. Now the personal ones. Like I said, we're gonna give you some time to talk about some smoke divers. But this first one I have from it, being an instructor, helping out. It's been something that I love about smoke divers, just like reading about it, looking in. Obviously, Brian and I want to take it, but from an instructor standpoint, explain what smoke divers okay with failure means for you.
So from I guess, once you've passed to become an instructor, but we're okay with failure. And in my 4 years now of experience with them, is because the standard is the standard, and there has to be a line somewhere. If you start moving it up and down per person, then the standard's never the standard. And that's where we became, and this is my opinion, not, the smoke divers, overall opinion, but my opinion in it is that by setting that standard and being okay with people failing is where you actually start getting people to succeed and exceed that standard. And it's what's super unique about the course is, we have a 40 to 50%, or I guess we have a 50 to 60% drop rate. Most classes are seeing 40 to 50% success. And if you were to look at any other testing process or class, if you're failing half your class, you're not putting on a good class.
Mm-hmm.
But the perspective we have is that, no, we are just that many people we're not meeting the standard. And that doesn't mean that you can't, and it sure as hell doesn't mean that you're not a good fireman. It just means that maybe today, or this exercise wasn't your day. And now whether you come back and attempt again and push through, or were you a one and done and never going to come back, that's kind of up to you. And you see a lot of guys, there's a lot of guys wearing those black shirts that they didn't pass their first time. they had a bad day and then they made that choice. I think that's what's kind of helped this program continue to grow, is that, they weren't okay with that failure. They weren't okay not reaching that standard. And instead of it kind of being a pitfall, it ended up being more motivation for them to come back and exceed it. And I think that's kind of where it comes from, is, being okay with people failing and not succeeding is kind of foreign to the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see people, everybody wants to pass. And we all know those classes that you can literally sign up and you cannot do a single hands-on thing. And I'm going to get the same cert as the guy who was in the front and did 20 reps. And maybe he looked like a jackass the first 15 times, but those last 5 times he looked like a stud. And I guarantee he's a better fireman for looking like a jackass 15 times than I am for getting this piece of paper that I can add to my file. And that's kind of where that it's nice to see with the course, is that, we're okay with people failing, because that's where people really do learn and push themselves to get truly better. And that's a really awesome thing, is that no matter who you are or how great of a fireman you are, and in my experience and watching, several classes go through, everybody finds that point. Whether it's a physical skill, whether it's your body rebelling against you, or whether it's just you mentally freaking out for a little bit, or just kind of like locking up, and it's pushing through that. So see some real growth in it, and it's for everybody. So it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. Like you said, I think the best thing and how the fire service come is you're saying you're setting the standard, whereas the fire service talks a lot about minimum standards.
Right.
And you bring it down, and like we've had some people on, we talked about a lot, is especially once you stop enforcing those standards, your minimum drops, because the last person that gets allowed to scrape by or doesn't meet the standard, but they go, you were 5 short, we'll let you slide. Well, that becomes a new standard.
Right.
And so you keep going down if you don't enforce that. So when you establish that standard and you said, this is where we want people to be, and you stay and enforce it, I think that's what we need to do as a fire service, because it's not, it's hard to, the good and the bad part about this job is it's hard to get rid of you once you're there.
Oh yeah.
Once you get hired, once you pass your probation, you could turn from a stud to an absolute shitbag. And aside from like intentionally killing somebody, you're stuck.
Yeah.
They're not getting rid of you.
Once you're in.
Yeah.
But
and so you enforce that standard and you keep it. That's, from the instructor standpoint, that's what I've always loved about watching it. What I'm really excited to experience is just like you said, your instructors, the overall class is okay with failure, but you're relying on the students to not be okay with failure.
Right. It's personal motivation, and then that's oh god, my ADHD is kicking in. I just had something to chime in there, but off it went.
If it comes back,
yeah. Oh, trust me, it will probably like tomorrow.
We'll
have
a little
practice later, like yelling out at some 13-year-olds. They're all gonna look at me super confused.
Are you okay with failure?
Oh, there it is. It's the minimum. Like, it's almost, you look at it. If you accept the minimum, you're never going to get better. 100% what you said. And the cool thing about us as instructors, and that the students don't realize, is everything they're doing, it was the same standard for us. So we're not pushing you because we're being assholes, which some guys do think we are, but we're pushing you so that we hold that line. And that's what I think makes a lot of us okay with people not making it, is that by holding that line, we're protecting what we fought so hard to get. I mean, it's not an easy 6 days.
Yeah. It's just like that, the age old, I had to climb uphill in a snowstorm both ways to get to work. Like, I think that's important too, when you don't change that. Cause I think about, going through academies or talking to other guys, and like, you go and do this course, you go and do this drill, whatever it is. And you get the old guy or whatever. It's like, oh, back in my day, we had to like, as soon as you've taken that away, it's a genuine respect from the day one guy to the day, 300, the most recent guy, whatever it may be. Like, once you keep that same standard, there's no fluctuation. You can't go, oh, they're going easy on you this one. Like,
Right.
when I went through, I had to do this. Like, no, it's that, like you said, I think that's such a just genuine overall respect that you get to maintain when you know exactly what they had to go through to get to that point. So that's awesome. Well, we'll keep on with the smoke divers. With our next one, what is your best advice for taking a smoke divers course?
So this was given to me while I was preparing. There's a couple things. If you've ever heard Chief Rhodes talk, one of the big ones is get comfortable in your gear. Like, at the end of the day, what separates us from the public is that $2,000 or $20,000 worth of gear and that air pack and all that. And you're going to spend a lot of time in class in that gear, and learning to be comfortable and operating in that when you're tired more than you were prepared for is huge. So just get super familiar being in your gear, being uncomfortable in there, and just, with that air pack on, your helmet on, your mask on. Those are some key things that can help you along the way. And then the best piece of advice I was given prior to going to class was, I didn't look at Friday. I looked at each event as its own challenge. I didn't try to win the war on day one.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at each little battle, and some of them went really well. Some scenarios or PT sessions or whatever, I was clicking on all cylinders and they went super smooth. But as soon as that one was done, it's kind of like a football game or something. I moved past it, and then I moved on to the next one. If the next one didn't go so smooth, it was just about taking it one thing at a time, not trying to do everything at once. And that really was helpful. But for me, I went in with the mentality, and I told some of the guys, because there was 5 smoke divers in Kansas before me, and they're like, well, what's your mentality going in? And I was like, I'm either going to pass this class or leave on an ambulance. And I tried to make the second one come true more times than I'd like. But, that was it. It was a mentality of, I'm gonna go until I can't, or until they tell me I'm done. The idea of going up there and hanging my webbing up and saying I was done myself, I didn't even think about that. That wasn't an option. I wasn't going to come home to my crew and my family and all that and be like, yeah, I chose to quit. Now, if I failed, I failed, but I wasn't going to be happy. But just the idea of saying, hey, I tapped out myself. Yeah, that option wasn't on the table. But doing that, and then having just one evolution, one thing at a time. I didn't even take it as like, hey, we're going to try to get through the morning, because you start looking at it, it's like your morning's 5 hours long. It's a long ass morning.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get through this PT session. I'm going to get through this run. I'm going to get through this evolution. I'm going to get through that, and just kind of rolled with it, and just one at a time. But I never let it get to the point where I thought I was cruising. Like, it was always a new battle each time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. It's somewhere we're excited to give a shot. I know we're with the job changes and everything. Like, we're not putting in this year, so we're gonna go back next year to give it a shot, since we didn't get in the last year. But yeah,
it's gotten really competitive. It's cool to see, and I just hope that we can keep it going. I mean, there's a lot of people putting in, and a lot of good people. I mean, I think the last time we had Oklahoma's class, they had guys from Jersey, Canada, New Mexico. Nice. I was like, that's impressive. It's really
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a brotherhood. It's a cool little, like you said, it's that genuine respect, as much as Jaden gives you shit for it, or we all joke about it. I know with Austin, when we were talking about it, we made it clear. We were like, he's a smoke diver. But
I got plenty of grief for it in Ohio. It's kind of it comes with the territory. You just, if you can't handle it, don't sign up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, I think it's just it is a respect, but it's the fire service, so we're always going to give people shit when you
Oh,
doing
100%.
something that we can't. Like,
Yeah.
but no, it's
I
awesome.
haven't tried this yet, but I will definitely make fun of you for it.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea how hard it is, but you're a pussy for it. I'm just kidding. that's how everything goes in the fire service. But
Absolutely.
no, it's awesome. Next one we got. Now we're pivoting a little bit from the smoke divers. Like we said, we got to meet you when we came down to Wichita. I don't remember if that was the first time or not. That's been the cool thing is now I think everybody that we meet is kind of merging together. Where you're like, you think I've known this person for a long time, and you talk about them like I just met you last month. You're like, oh fuck. But no, it's one thing we got to see when we were there. We got to tour, which we really appreciated and really thought was cool. Is the culture in especially in your firehouse. And I know you talked about that. It was a big change in just the department in general, but your firehouse has quite the culture. And our question is, what is the best way to breed an aggressive culture in your firehouse?
Training. So it looks aggressive to other people, but that's just our normal operations, and we train on it. We get out there, we sweat as a crew, we work as a crew. I mean, and it came from our captain. He was a part of a group, back when he was a fireman, and they've all those guys that he was a fireman with have promoted. They're all either captains or chiefs now, and they've kept that mentality going, and they've just kind of fostered and grown that in us. And it's, when we go do training, it's, Cap's the first one to start breaking couplings and rolling up line, and I think he just had his 20-year anniversary, and it's, he's the captain of Rescue 2, and he's still out there stretching line with us because we got a guy working through pump school right now. And then, once again, there's the minimum standards, and then there's 10 houses standards. And that's where we push guys. It's like, I can remember we had a training that we were doing stretching 2.5, and we met the standard, but he came back and he looked and he saw that our stretch looked like shit. And he was like, load it up, do it again. And we all were like, absolutely. And that mentality bred in, it fostered and grew into us of like, it looks aggressive, but it's like, that's just the speed we operate at. And that's that culture we operate under. Do we still give guys a day off from time to time and say, hey, today we don't have any training scheduled. We've been hitting it pretty hard. Yeah, because you got to have those days, because otherwise you're going to grind guys down. But when it's time to go, from him all the way to our junior guy, we know that like when the tones drop, it's game time, and guys got their face on because we practice that. And when we see weird calls or anything interesting calls that come out, it doesn't have to be a full blown training scenario. It might just be, hey, let's put the picture on the wall or on the TV, and we're not sitting here to nitpick them, but like, eliminate what we can and what would we have done in this exact scenario. And then it just fosters that conversation. It's really cool because it's kind of that kitchen table mentality where, there's 2 officers there, but there's also, 4 or 5 other firemen, and it's just equal. It's like, there's no wrong answer here. There might be something where like, hey, I'm really glad you brought that up. Let's not do that. And this is why. But
that was a stupid idea. But
and sometimes, I've said plenty of stupid shit where my guys shook their head. But it is what it is. But when they say that, at least now I know their train of thought. I'm like, hey, I love that you're thinking right now that this is how we should solve that solution. But if we did that, this is what could happen and could actually make this worse. And I'd rather have that happen looking at a picture or in a training scenario. And I think that's really what also has helped us be kind of that aggressive culture, is that when we are training, we're not looking to point blame or make somebody look inadequate or insufficient. We're looking to help everybody improve in all facets of it. Whether it's our OV guy getting a 360, whether it's our doorman getting the door, or MPO helping my line stretched, or me getting my 360 or whatever it is. We're never really satisfied. And by not doing that, there's always room for improvement. There's always the adage, I've never been to a perfect fire. I've definitely bought into that. But that came all from training and every day kind of having that attitude of, we're going to train on something. Some days it's going to be 45 minutes. some days it's going to be 4 hours, but by doing that, we're able to really make a difference and be aggressive, because if we call an audible, it's not the first time we've called it. It's happened in training. We've practiced it, and everybody kind of knows how to facilitate it happen.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Awesome. We've heard training is the answer so many times when we've asked similar questions. And like I said, anytime when we have this podcast geared at, new members, and we ask some of the same questions, give different outlooks, but you're going to see the same questions. And we hope that drives it home for people.
Well, the
that same answer.
But I also think like that ability for our guys to make decisions, and I'm not going to transfer them out because they fucked up while we were doing some training scenario.
Yeah.
I coach my oldest boy's football team. I don't kick a kid off the team because he messed up at practice. That's where we want to see the mistakes. I want to see you fuck up going 100 miles an hour, because maybe you were actually doing the right thing, but you went too fast. Maybe if you take a step back and you're, going a little slower, that just fits right in with how everybody else is working. And that's kind of the cool thing, is I think our guys are aware that you mess up in training, that's cool as long as we get it right. But if you mess up in training and you're okay with it, that's where the issue comes from. So giving guys that confidence that if you want to try something, let's try it today. If you want to do something different, let's do it here before we do it on the fire ground. And that really kind of helped, and kind of also giving them that voice at the table, it's not just because. And our senior guy, when I came over to tens, I'll never forget it. He went, "Yeah, you might be the officer, but that doesn't make you in charge. That just makes you responsible." And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
We operate kind of independently given our roles at fires. But at the end of the day, if shit were to hit the fan or a bad call's made, that's going to come back to me. But it's my job to make sure that he had that ability. And by no means am I saying that he ever, I think he's probably one of the best firemen on the job. But he's right. He had that ability and that freedom to make those calls and make different decisions and try new things in training, knowing that I still had his back. And then when we go to a fire, I don't have to wonder. And he knows that if I'm going to back him up there, then I'm going to back him up here. And it gives that aggressive feel, but it doesn't feel aggressive to us. That's just, I think what I told you guys, that's just kind of the Wichita way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of answer perfectly ties into the first of our closing questions. So like I said, your next task after this one is going to be coming up with your own question for Brian Keppel of Waukesha. And the question that Austin came up for you is, what point in your career did you realize training was important? And what are some of the biggest things you have gained from that training?
So it initially probably started when I got on the hazmat team. And, went in, got my tech, came over to the team. And one of the first things I was told by the lieutenant there at the time was, that was the book way. Now we're going to train you on the way we do things. And they did. And then that's when those other classes started coming in. I was like, hey, now you need to go. That training became important because we were responsible for it, but we weren't really good at it. So it's one of those, they're going to turn and look to us to answer this problem, and only us, because we were the only hazmat team in the city. So it's this is our game no matter what. We better figure out how to answer this. And so that's kind of where I started looking at it of if you're going to be responsible for these things, you better have an answer. And that started that, I need to go get training here and whatnot. And then it just kind of kept growing. That when I started driving the engine, just figuring out that I'm now responsible for all that. Now, I'm pissed my guys are at the fire and I've got a great seat, but I'm bored. But that training transitioned over there, and that was just fostered by the captain at the time. We challenged each other for pops, who could catch a plug cleaner. And those I've had some really good officers along the way that fostered that and kept it going. And now it's just my job to kind of do that with my guys, and they do it too. I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, just pick a random building and I'll give you a size of it. Tell me if it sucks. But it's just finding ways to keep it going and never getting stagnant. So
awesome. Only thing I have to add from there is it's soda, not pop.
Oh god.
Here we go again.
We make soda bets all the time, so it can't be
Yeah.
pop. It can't.
At least as long as you don't say like, you know, you want a Coke and then I don't know what the hell you want. Like,
Yeah, and that's a Coke is Coke. That's,
yeah, Coke is Coke. It's the ones that's like
at least we can agree on that. At least
Yeah.
we can agree on that.
I want the Coke in the red can. I don't know what more you want.
I want the clear Coke. And then they come out with a line of Coke, and you're like, oh shit!
Oh, I got an Oreo Coke.
No.
No, not the bugger sugar. Not the bugger sugar. No, awesome. So I mean, that's all the questions that we have for you. So now, you know, it's up to you. So you have to come with the question for our next guest. Like we said, Brian Cap, Waukesha Lieutenant, great guy, Bruce City Fools member. He does a lot of instructing as well. He is a fantastic guy. He was him and I started in Bruce City at the same time, and I remember texting Brennan. He doesn't have a Facebook, and when we started this podcast, like probably our third episode, I got a text from him being like, "Hey man, love the podcast," and I'm like, "How the fuck did you hear about it?" I'm like, "How did you?" And I was so baffled by it. It was the coolest thing for us because I was like, "This is so cool.
That's awesome."
This guy doesn't have a Facebook, like. No, it's awesome. Either that or I don't know your Facebook, Brian. We've talked about it. You don't, so it's you've made one now. But no, he's just a great guy. So yeah, it's on you. You can ask him a question as if you're a brand new firefighter. If you still have a question or you think he's just got a good answer, whatever you think will work best. It's the hardest part of the podcast.
There's a lot. I mean, like, there's just some that, you know, there's just some good questions that like I've been asked. But then there's also those ones that you're just always kind of curious, like, what would somebody do? You know, I think I would just say, you know, why'd you get promoted? Why'd you get promoted, and what difference has that made in your fire service career? You know,
yeah, everyone gets promoted.
Everybody has different motivations.
Yeah.
So, you know, and some are good, some are bad, some are monetary, some are power, you know, it is what it is. But it's like, you know, what difference has it made, you know? You know,
how does that help you in your career?
Yeah. Right. You know, you know, have you been able to use that promotion to keep the ball rolling, which I hope guys feel like I have, and bringing up young guys, or did you just kind of get it and get a cush assignment? Now you're like, I'm going to ride this pony till it dies.
Yeah. No, Brian will have a good answer for that. Like I say, he's a stand-up guy, and for the right reasons. I'm curious to see what drove him there. So it's awesome. But yeah, that is all the questions we have for you. You mentioned it earlier. The last part that we have is what we call the kitchen table. So anything that you want to add on top of maybe something you didn't get to talk about as much as you wanted to. We like to shout out some trainings coming up, some things you think some people should check out, and any shout outs you want to make yourself. It's all yours,
you know,
send it off.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you guys hit on it. Yeah, if you're ever interested in the smoke diver program, talk to one of us. Reach out. We are a lot more approachable than people make it.
Even though you're smoke divers,
right? Oh yeah, we'll definitely.
Oh yeah.
Even though we're below you, it's.
One of my guys on my crew, he made the most epic joke. I think it was up when we were in Wisconsin with you all. He was like, you know what smoke divers and CrossFitters both have in common? They're both going to tell you about it within the first 10 minutes.
I do remember hearing that.
Willie, I've passed that on to other guys. I'm just like, dude, he's got us. By the ball. We got nothing. But it's definitely one that, like, if you're ever interested in the program, you know, look into it. But yeah, if you're a guy that's like if you're losing that motivation, if you're looking for that test, sign up. That's usually the hardest part. You know, most guys, you know, want to talk about it and everything, but make an effort. See if you have what it takes, and I guess see if you meet the standard. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think no matter how the journey ends, you'll come out better for it. And whether that's a black shirt or not, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses. Shout outs for classes. I always like Wichita Hot. It's a great one. I think it's selling out ridiculously fast. It's coming up in October, the 12th and the 13th. They bring in a lot of good instructors. It's a lot of really good training. There's some good speakers. It's not the most thriving destination. Not too many people come to Wichita for vacation. We're a flyover state, that's for sure. But I think you guys can attest to it. When you get here, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna meet some good guys, and you're gonna enjoy the trip.
Just don't try and walk home, even if it's only a half mile.
Yeah, don't do that. It looks fine during the daylight, but don't do it at night.
That was the best. When we decided to call an Uber instead of walking the last 4 blocks to our hotel, because we were just like, this doesn't look right, and the Uber driver's like, you guys should not be here. We're like, all right,
wrong neighborhood, fellas.
We made a good decision.
I think there's a lot of fire conferences that have stories like that, where it's like, now I know why this VRBO is so cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's still a great time. Makes for great stories, and everywhere's got it. Especially when you're not from anywhere, you can end up in the wrong spot real quick.
100%. Yeah.
It's been one of our favorite memories from there, though. Is we're like, it's 8 blocks away from our hotel.
I can see the hotel room down the fucking street. There's like a bunch of people like in gangs and shit. Like came from
look at all these
Milwaukee
guys
and just work EMS.
Oh, look at these guys. They want to say hi.
No, they don't want to say hi.
That's awesome.
We're gonna go to this well-lit gas station and hold tight.
That's exactly what we did.
The gas station have 2 cop cars at it.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, with like classes, I would say just besides hot, I don't know of any ones that are coming up. Mainly because it's hunting season around here. So I hit Forge Fire's Alliance thing, and then I'll do hot, and then I'll kind of be done till the winter kicks in. But just get out there, go see what's close. Don't be afraid to look around. Yeah. I mean, between Facebook, Instagram, and Google, you can pretty much find something. And there's a lot of good ones out there. There's a lot of good dudes out there spreading a good message. So just kind of go see what's in your budget, see what's in your time range, and go from there. But don't be afraid to go to a class by yourself. Yeah, I just did it and I had a blast. It's always a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, thanks again for coming on. That's all the time we have, and I was really excited that you took the time out. I know you gave some real good information and good stuff that we were hoping you would share. So can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to share that with us. So
absolutely, guys. Glad I didn't disappoint you.
No, it was great.
Not at all.
Thanks for coming on again.
Yeah.
When are you guys coming down here?
I think not this. It sucks with the job. I want to make it down for Wichita Hot one of these. So next time we might. But now being back on probation, trying to it's can't be jumping ship to all these conferences right away. So
it's the good and the bad about when you move around. But
I did lateral though, so I interned here. My dad was on here, so I'll probably even still be on probation next year when I start trying to hit some training. So it's pretty great, but
it's not a totally new department to you.
Yeah. And it's a great atmosphere. The guys are. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, can't wait to see you, and thank you for coming on. Thank everybody for watching and listening. We couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without our sponsors. We're just happy that this keeps working and being something cool. So yeah, thanks. That's all I got. Thanks all for watching, and don't be a shitbag.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Don't be a shitbag.